and that's where we're going to begin tonight. Brexit, because UK Prime Minister Theresa May is coming back to Brussels on Thursday to try and win some concessions for her beleaguered Brexit deal. Well, she'll meet with the EU President Jean-Claude Juncker and Michel Barnier to try to renegotiate something or anything on the Irish backstop. Well, Darren, you were actually there at the midday briefing today. What did you get anything?
Well, there's a
what
little bit of a row brewing over what was said precisely yesterday by Martin Selmayr, who's now one of the most senior civil servant inside the Commission, and what he told British parliamentarians, British MPs who met with him yesterday about the legal guarantees they may well be able to give the European Union in regards to Brexit and the backstop. He seemed to suggest, or this is what British MPs suggested, that he may be willing to give some ground on that legal guarantee. And so he then also, though, issued a tweet several hours later seeming to deny this. And I was asking the question, essentially, who do we believe?
Exactly.
Let's have a watch. Yesterday, a group of British parliamentarians outside this building said that when they met with Martin Selmayr, that he had floated this idea of giving legal assurances inside the withdrawal agreement linked to the Tusk-Juncker letter that we saw earlier on this year. That's what they said. Martin Selmayr then seemed to issue a tweet an hour or so later dismissing this. Who are we meant to believe? His tweets or those British MPs?
As this was a meeting that would be likely to be misreported, I made sure that I had an SPP representative in the meeting. And I can tell you that I am very well informed that what we have read in the Secretary General's tweet is exactly what happened.
I mean, that doesn't answer the question still, though, because one side says there's the other. I think the reporters stand by what they reported, so...
Yeah, indeed, and it was in the front page of the Times of London today. I think what may well have happened, or where the truth may lie, is that Martin Selmayr was trying to work out what would be needed to try and get the withdrawal agreement through the Westminster Parliament, and in doing so suggested that what you could do is have that letter that we saw last month from Donald Tusk and from Jean-Claude Juncker insisting that the backstop would only be temporary, to make that essentially legal and put it inside the withdrawal agreement. Would that be enough? It was an idea that was floated.
Sure.
But Martin Selmayr was trying to then backtrack yesterday, suggesting that it's not actually the policy of the European Union, or it's not even what he is suggesting.
Because we were chatting before the show, Renata, and I asked you what you thought about Brexit. What do you think? Legal guarantees coming from the EU, is that even a possibility?
No, I think that in this moment, the entire thing shows that there is a sort of a childish behaviours everywhere. It's very, very late. I'm really concerned with the fate of the citizens, both EU in the UK and UK in the EU. And there is a sort of a stubbornness. Okay, if we want to renegotiate a little bit, do we know what that little bit is about? Because that's the problem. We know that everything was blocked, but none of us will, in fact, make a move toward the other one. The British MPs would not change their mind. The European Union says, and I believe it is right, that we already conceded a lot. So where are we now? I'm afraid that a no deal will be the...
A no deal is what you think. So Theresa May coming back here on Thursday, what on earth could she possibly bring with her that could change the direction? I mean, you said 2 years and still it's on the table. What could she possibly bring?
Nothing at this point. I'm not trying to be funny, but I mean, we have a situation where it's Theresa May laid down red lines very early on in the negotiations, which is what led us to needing the backstop in the first place, because of those red lines. They weren't prepared to negotiate on those red lines, so we have a backstop. Theresa May negotiates a withdrawal agreement, goes to her parliament, and then tells the parliamentarians to vote against the backstop. So, I mean, any faith that we had in her, and I believe that she was going to stand over any agreement, is null and void. So I don't see what she's going to come back with.
But also it's notable that Leo Varadkar is here tomorrow.
Sure.
What's Leo Varadkar going to give?
Well,
because politics is about compromise.
And I think all the compromise has been given. And to the point where...
So why does Leo Varadkar... OK, so I don't understand this. Like, the British government have been very clear that they will not impose a hard border in Ireland. So who will?
Well,
It'll be the European Union.
Well, no, I mean, as Ireland
they
has
want to
said, they're
protect-
not going to install any infrastructure or hardening
Yeah, but
of
the
the
EU,
border.
the only reason there would be a hard border in Ireland is to protect the EU single market.
If the EU,
But that's when the backstop is triggered.
Yeah, precisely. But the whole point is Britain is perfectly happy at the moment. Even in the
course
event
it is, with wanting its cake and eating it.
But even in the event of no deal, it says that we do not care about this land border. We are perfectly happy to have the border as free and frictionless as it is. The only people who will impose a hard border in Ireland are the EU because they want to ensure the single market.
Well, that's 27 other countries, isn't it?
But that's 27 other countries who are looking and saying you cannot have an intact single market unless you have
So it's
checks
the EU
and balances.
who will impose a hard border.
No, this is exactly...
It is.
This is such childish politics of the British who want their cake and eat it. And they can't have it. I'm sorry, but everybody has watched the shambles that is Westminster and is saying, tell us what it is that you want. You keep telling us that there's other alternatives to a hard border, but we've had 2 years of looking at it and we haven't seen one example come forward that's actually practical. So it's time for, I'm afraid, for the British politicians to just grow up and come forward with something that is actually tangible.
I mean, we've talked about this a lot, the Irish border and that backstop and that hard border. It is central to this Brexit debate. Theresa May, she was on tour today, and this time in Northern Ireland, where she pledged not to leave Northern Ireland behind and to find a Brexit solution without a hard border, as we keep discussing. Well, our correspondent, Shona Murray, is with the UK Prime Minister in Belfast tonight. Shona, so can you tell us what exactly did Theresa May have to say? What was her message there?
Well, as predicted, she sought to allay the fears of the business community, mainly here. That's the audience for today, essentially because, you know, last time Theresa May was in Northern Ireland, she was asking the business community to support her withdrawal agreement, which contained the backstop. And broadly speaking, when you speak to members of businesses here, retails, manufacturing, digital services, they do generally support the backstop because it is an element of security. It also allows Northern Ireland to remain within the single market and the customs union and eventually have access to any of the trade deals that the UK does broker in the future. And of course, not everybody thinks it's perfect, but they think it's the least worst option. They also think that the insecurity that's continuing, you know, particularly when it appears as if the UK could be hurtling towards a no-deal scenario, that's incredibly damaging. And I caught up with Conor Houston, who's a digital entrepreneur, and he explained to me that the balance needs to be right in terms of protecting the Good Friday Agreement and business.
It's a bit of a conundrum, and it's why this issue has proven to be so intractable. It goes back to the Good Friday Agreement, which recognised there are three sets of relationships. That is, relationships within Northern Ireland between the two communities here, relationships north-south between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and relationships between Britain and Ireland. And where the EU27 and the UK have really found an intractable conundrum is that they can't find a solution that works with that arithmetic. And that's why the backstop, if you like, is the least worst option. Nobody's saying it's the best solution. Nobody's saying it's the best fix. But if the UK is determined to leave the European Union, then there needs to be some way of protecting both the internal market of the United Kingdom, i.e. between Northern Ireland and Great Britain, but also between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, where we enjoy over 300 areas of cross-border cooperation.
So there you go, Conor Houston. I suppose he's really expressing the type of concerns and the consensus that I've been hearing when you speak to business people here in Northern Ireland. You know, very much so, they're also saying that we hear from the political side, you know, which tends to be tainted with an agenda, whether it's from one community or another. In actual fact, people here just want to get on with their lives and want to have a bit of security. So Theresa May is, you know, she's been speaking to, as I said, members of the business community. She'll speak to other communities this evening, but she's, I would say, received quite a frosty reception because there's an element of confusion about the fact that 1 minute she, you know, supported a deal, supported the backstop, said this legal guarantee was necessary, and then did a volte-face in the House of Commons and advocated for that deal to be rescinded. Tomorrow she's going to meet some of the Stormont members, the 5 parties within Northern Ireland, and she'll have a one-on-one with Arlene Foster where she expects that Arlene Foster will continue to double down on her position, which is that they'll only have a withdrawal agreement once the backstop is deleted. She then again, as we know, moved on Thursday to Brussels after the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar has been there. And it's hope, you know, she believes that she might get some sort of movement. But when you speak to sources on either side, there really is no common ground at this point. Tessa.
Thank you for that. Shona Murray, our correspondent there. Renata, I'd like to go to you. So Theresa May there trying to appease businesses. Do you think any of that would make any difference at all?
I don't know. In this moment, I remember that we discussed quite a lot. And there was a lot of openness on behalf of the Parliament to save the Good Friday Agreement, to keep the Northern Ireland. But can you keep them both in a UK that just decided to leave the EU and in the EU? Of course, this is a very delicate problem. And I'm afraid that, in my view, it's too late. I know that politics is the art of the negotiations, but 2 years have passed, and I haven't seen that much willingness to negotiate.
I mean, and is anyone even still listening to Theresa May, considering how Brexit is going? And is she in any position to make any of those promises that she's making to businesses?
Well, Lisa, that's the crux of the problem, is that you look at Westminster and there is no common ground for anything. Everybody knows that they don't want this withdrawal agreement, but they don't know what they do want. Whereas when you look in Ireland, across the political divide, and it's not just with the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, all of the political parties are in agreement. There will be no hard border and we have to protect the Good Friday Agreement. You look at the EU, the 27 member states are solid in their approach, saying we have got this agreement, we've spent 2 years of our time negotiating it, this is where we're finishing. So you're looking at Theresa May going, like, you need to find some sort of common ground, call an election, do something, but you cannot just continue to keep demanding that we pause everything and just keep negotiating with somebody who doesn't know what they're negotiating for.
And Darren, to your point earlier, what's so wrong about trying to protect, for the EU to try to protect their
There's nothing wrong, but I think it's
really
wrong to suggest that the hard border or a hard border in Ireland would be a result of what the British would do. No, it is a result of Brexit, undoubtedly. Right. I mean, there are several things about this. First of all, and this is how complicated and complex Brexit is. First of all, I mean, where we are, or where Britain is a reflection of the fact the referendum was 52-48, and Britain is a divided country, and it's not entirely sure where it wants to go. Second of all, you know, people talk about backing and protecting the Good Friday Agreement. We've heard today from David Trimble, Lord Trimble, an architect of the Good Friday Agreement, someone who the Good Friday Agreement would not be in existence of were it not for him. And he's suggesting that actually the backstop is in contradiction of the Good Friday Agreement rather than ensuring that it continues to exist. But ultimately, you know, we are in a position where no one, and everyone insists on this, they do not want no deal. And that means that someone has to give.
Well, some people are saying it's not the bad
Brexit is
anymore.
bad for Britain. It is also bad for a slowing German economy. It's very bad for the Republic of Ireland. It's very bad for the people of Northern Ireland. And so in those circumstances, and they have to remember the vast majority of trade in Northern Ireland is within the UK single market, not with the Republic of Ireland. Someone needs to give some ground. So it will be interesting. The most interesting meeting this week may not be Theresa May meeting Jean-Claude Juncker. It might be Leo Varadkar meeting Jean-Claude Juncker.
That's going to be interesting.